Well, hello, all of my DIY friends out on the internet here. Well, we just completed installing this new laminate flooring here in the living room here, and I wanted to show you something here that you probably don't run into too often, and that is when you have to terminate a wood floor up against a curved tile floor. So as you can see here, we have a tile floor that looks a little bit straight over here, but you can see it starts curving as you get over here. So you're probably wondering, well, how did they do that? How did they make this happen? And that is what we're going to show you today, folks. We're going to show you how we pulled off this engineering feat here and how we made this transition T molding piece here curve. So as you look down the road there, you can see this looks like a regular piece of wood, but this is not. This is a piece of flexible T molding that we cut ourselves to fit here. Custom cut, and then we stained it. And so today we're going to show you how we did all of this from start to finish. As we look at the end of the board here, we know that we're going to be mating up against this tile and that we're going to have a T molding there. Now it's going to be a flexible T mold that we have. That's on order. That'll be here in a couple of days. But I have a piece of just regular wood T mold to show you here how it works. So the T mold will go on and it has to push all the way against the tile to the left here so that you can see how it's all the way against the tile like that. And then you have to leave an expansion underneath it between the end of the wood piece and the center of it where it's a T. So you see how, so the board that you put down can't come all the way up against that center T there. It has to have a gap in there. And that's how you set that gap and that distance and everything. So that the T mold is covering the board. It'll still be over the board, but there's room for the board to expand under it, that 5/16 of an inch that you need. That's why planing these in your cut on the end is so crucial. This first row is always going to take you probably a half hour to get just that part done by the time you align everything up. And once you get your first 2 or 3 rows down, don't worry about exactly where they're positioned against the wall and whether they're all locked in and this and that yet, because everything's going to shift around on you until you start getting more courses down the row here. So typically what we do is we get our first 3 rows in, then we try to snap them all in, make sure they're all nice and tight and up against the wall where we want them, and then we'll take a case of wood planks here and we'll put that wood flooring right on top of our 3 rows, and that'll hold them steady until we get all the other ones in. So once you get about 5-6 rows down, you don't have a problem anymore, because then there's enough weight down on the floor to keep everything from sliding around. Alright, so now we got to figure out how to cut this flexible molding here in order to terminate it up against the wall and get rid of that space that's right there, see? So what we have to do is, it's going to fit up against the wall, so even though it's approaching the wall at this angle due to the curve in the tiled floor, we need to make sure that it butts straight up against it. So what we need to do is just kind of cut it diagonally across the molding piece there so that it's parallel here with the wall. So probably a good idea, what we should do here is we can do like a piece of tape and just put it parallel with the wall like that, and all we got to do is cut along there, and that will terminate this end of the flexible molding, and then we can go work on the other end. So let's make this cut. Alright, okay, so you can see here I've cut it and it looks like it makes up pretty good. So we're just going to go ahead and do the other side now, at the other end. Now you can cut this on a chop saw or with a utility knife. I just did it right here with a utility knife. Alright, so on this other end here, you can see all we got to do is cover this gap here, and it might be best if we just let it end here and come straight off the wall. Because you get this wood plank that's coming straight off here, And so your center spine of the T-mold was going to hit that. So you might as well just cut it off right there. That's a good sensible spot to end it. And we'll end it parallel to the wall right here. We'll just go straight that way with it. All right, so I've got the tape marked right there, and all I got to do is use my utility knife here again, like I did on the other side. And we will go ahead and get this thing cut. Okay, so there's our cut. And let's see how it's. So after cajoling with it for a minute there, you can see it looks pretty good. Lines up right to the end. And so our flexible T-mold there just goes all the way down the end there and terminates at the other side of the wall. So now what we're going to do is we got to take this, we're going to take up this T-mold and we're going to go and stain it to the same color of the floor here, and then we'll put a polyurethane coating over it to protect it. Anytime you stain or paint wood or something, you always want to put a polyurethane coating on top of it to protect it. So let's go ahead and get that done now. Alright, so we've got the wood stain and we picked this Kona color here, which pretty much comes real close to this wood here that we're using. And then we're going to let that dry an hour, and then we'll apply this polyurethane on here. Okay. So we're going to test it out on a leftover piece. Remember we cut that little section off there? We're going to test it on here to see how it looks here. So stain looks nice and dark now. It claims on the can there one coat, so we'll see. I'm going to hold them to that. Just go straight down without stopping, or eventually you got to re-wet it, right?
Yeah, you got to keep a wet edge on it and do the entire thing in one process.
Yeah, see? Yeah, so maybe after we apply it, we just give it a kind of a stroke on the top there like that, without digging too much into it, and it lightens it up a bit without the yellow showing through. See, that looks good. And after it goes on, give it just a very gentle wipe. We're not taking off too much. We just want to leave just a little bit of yellow poking through there so it actually looks like it's real wood grain. See, we just do small sections at a time and we overlap them. So when you're doing these cloths, see, these have to be a lint-free cloth. So in this case, this was a t-shirt here. And just dip it in 1 square inch or so at a time into the can. So you see how we're not leaving any racetrack marks, or anything. Right, when you stop, you want to make sure that there's no visible marks showing where you stopped. So this should look pretty uniform all the way across. So this whole piece here will be stained in less than 5 minutes total. And the can says it'll dry in an hour, so we'll see if that's true or not. But anyway, once it's dry to the touch, then we'll add the polyurethane. Alright, so here is the piece finally stained. So we're in that 1 hour waiting step right now. We're just waiting to see if it dries in time, like they say. And then when it does, we'll apply the polyurethane protective coating on there with a brush. But I mean, this looks pretty nice actually. So we kind of simulated some nice sort of woodish grain on there. Okay, so for the polyurethane here, you just dip your brush into it. Now it's going to come out milky white, but when it dries it will be clear. So you want to keep your brush wet. Keep it as even coating as you can on there. So this is our little test piece. So we're going to apply it to this first. Now this particular polyurethane works great with the stain because they're made by the same company. And on the back of the stain it says as long as you use any of the Varathane polyurethanes it'll be fine. So then you do one long stroke that goes all the way down when you're done. And this is the first coat, and they say to let it dry for an hour. 2 hours actually on this one. So you have to wait 2 hours for it to dry, and then you apply a second coat and wait 2 hours for that to dry. And then their recommendation from Varathane is to put 3 coats down. Now this is a satin finish, so we'll see how this looks once it's all dry. We'll see if we like how the finish looks. You know, you notice how, because we used a really cheap brush, I wanted to show you this. This is what happens when you use the cheap chip brushes. You get the air bubbles there. So here we went with a much finer, like a Worcester brush here. And so you can see it's actually getting rid of all of those bubbles, and it makes it a lot smoother and finer, where you don't even hardly see the ridges. So this looks way more refined here. See? Much different than the way it looked a minute ago. Okay, so now we're starting on the main piece. Then you just take your time and coat it on nice and evenly. So you do get what you pay for with these brushes. You know, if you use the better brushes like these, the higher quality, they can deposit the paint or the urethane, whatever they have to deposit. They can do it a lot better than the cheaper brushes. And remember, this will dry nice and clear when it's done. And you still got 2 more levels, so you got to leave enough time. It's best to do like a couple of these at night, a couple of coats at night, and then let it dry overnight. And then once you put this back on the floor, you're really not supposed to have anybody step on it for a few days. Okay, so one final stroke that goes all the way down, non-stop. That way we don't leave any cross marks anywhere. Okay, so we've let that dry overnight now. We've come back in the next morning. I've brought this back upstairs, and we're just going to very carefully put our second layer of polyurethane on here now. And remember, it's going to go on kind of like milk, and then it will dry nice and clear. So you'll see I just do, again, just short strokes just to get the product on there first. And don't forget to do the edges, of course. I go all the way down the edges. Now once I've got the product on there, I'm taking my brush and I'm just going to run it all the way down the line, just to make sure we don't have any borders on there from, you know, stopping. Because if you stop right there like that, you'll end up with a border, right? So I'll go back to the beginning and start all over again, and I just try to do one streak going all the way down. So here's our test piece that we've been using all along, and you can see how, I mean, the color of that just looks gorgeous. It's hard to believe that this is a flexible piece of rubber. See, remember? So we were doing some experimenting on this to see whether it made sense to do sandpaper in between the layers, to sandpaper it a little bit to smooth things out, or we also tried steel wool, the finest steel wool, the quadruple zero grade. So as we look down here, there was no noticeable visual difference between using it and not using it, because one half of this didn't have it sanded, the other half of it did have it sanded. We can't feel a difference and we can't see a difference. Now keep in mind, this isn't wood, so it might have more of an impact on wood. So judging by what our test piece did, we saw no reason to add any kind of sanding between any of the layers of stain or the layers of polyurethane on this bigger piece here. Okay. So we'll let this dry a couple of hours, and then we'll come back and give it its third coat and let it dry another couple of hours. And remember, you're supposed to really let this cure for a couple of days before there's any type of foot traffic on it. Okay, so here's the third coat. And we'll let that dry for another couple of hours. And then we'll be ready to install it. All right, so guess what? Our third coating of polyurethane is dried now. So it's been 4 hours. So now we're going to go ahead and dry fit this and make sure it looks good first. So just to recap what we have here, remember we have this curved tile floor here, and we left enough gap in there to fit this flexible T molding that we bought. It's made out of like a rubber type product. We've stained it and polyurethane coated it for protection. And so now we're going to put it into place here. And let's see how we did. So we'll come into this area here. Goes into there. Okay, so you can see here now we've got it all installed. And our flexible T molding is looking really good here. It runs along the wall there. And it stops right over there by the baseboard. So this is looking really nice. And just beautiful as it shines across the floor there from the light coming in from the window. So this, folks, is how you install and terminate your laminate wood flooring up against a curved tile floor. So the cost of this whole solution was, I believe it was about $60 or so for this T molding piece here, and maybe another $15 for the varnish and the polyurethane. And a little bit pricey, but not too bad. But in the end, it does look pretty good. So if you enjoyed this video, folks, we'd appreciate it if you would give us a thumbs up down below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel here. And when you subscribe, when you click on the subscribe button, be sure to hit that bell icon right next to it. That will alert you every time we produce a new video, because we're always uploading videos for you with very tough engineering solutions. All right, so that's it for this week, and you have a great one, folks, and we will see you on the next one. Bye now.